All right, guys. Hey, we have a lot of things to talk about. That is Monday here. There's a lot going on this weekend. All you SUP enthusiasts, you're going to be super stoked because we're condensing a week of SUP action into one little video. And we're also condensing our little like buttons and our little subscribe buttons onto your mouse. So this video can get some interaction and I can get a little bit support. There is a lot of work that goes into those videos. Thank you guys a lot. But let's get started. We had this weekend, we had the APP Tour, we had the 11 City Tour finishing up, we had the Euro Tour, and we had a local race in Germany that I do not want to miss out on. We had the SUP Alps Trophy down in Bavaria, also a big race. First things first, the APP Tour in London, finally kicking off the second tour stop there. They had to postpone this race before because there was a metro strike in London. It threw the whole APP Tour schedule kind of upside down, but we were, right after the SUP weekend in Poland, we were going over to London, and that was pretty cool. I was watching the sprint races mainly. That was my main interest, like heats after heats. Was number one, it was cool races, fast paced, lots of buoy turns, and then I was kind of like, all of a sudden I was thinking like, is this a sprint race or is this a tech race? The sprint races at the ICF were straight lane racing, water starts, 200 meters. The Eurosub sprint races were beach starts, out to a buoy and coming back. And the sprint races at the APP Tour were sitting starts, jumping up and doing a buoy course. And I kind of wish they had a clock underneath the race there, but I did clock one myself, and the race course was just about 2 minutes. I clocked Connor about 1:50 there, so I would almost call this like a sprint tech or a tech sprint, because I wasn't quite sure, is it now a tech or is it a sprint? But either way, it was really interesting to see. And of course, buoy turns always make for great content, you guys, so I enjoyed that. And there was a couple of questionable calls there, one on the buoy turn there with Kaylin Lockhart, and then a really interesting one at the entrance into the finish line there. And we're going to rewatch this, and then what I really appreciated is the communication by the organizers. And then Tristan Boxford came on camera and explained to us this.
Yeah, we basically had two incidents there. One was in the heat with Kaylin Lockhart and Claudio Nica. There was a situation on the third buoy where three athletes came to the buoy about the same time. Claudio was just ahead, Kaylin was catching, but not quite caught enough to be able to get pole position. So obviously it gets kind of caught into that buoy area. As they got there, obviously the boards touched. It put Kaylin a bit off balance and he fell in. But it wasn't a deliberate move. You could tell there wasn't any kind of deliberate action by Claudio or any of the other racers to take an aggressive stance. So that was just rubbing his racing. The other one was the finish on that last heat where we saw Shrimpy really catching Ludo in that last stretch. Unfortunately, what we saw is that Ludo had the pole position. He had his head down. He was paddling. Shrimpy came in and he was gunning right into him so he could make the arch. But by the time then his board came up against Ludo's, Ludo could no longer put his paddle on the other side of the board. So it ended up meaning that they were a little bit this side of the arch. But it was not really his fault because he couldn't put his paddle on the other side. And you could see right at the end, he actually puts it on the other side of the board just to be able to get under the arch. So again, that's a really tight racing, but no like deliberate foul on either athlete's part.
So that was really cool. There was great communication. I also liked always the fast-paced racing. So visually, it was really fast-paced. Audio-wise, unfortunately, it wasn't really fast-paced. It felt more like listening to a golf tournament. So sadly, the commentary there kind of did not keep pace with what was going on the screen. So I felt a little bit of a disconnect there. But besides the point, it was good racing, and it was really also cool to see how Connor and April came over from Poland, both sprint champions and both also APP sprint champions. So it was cool. Connor just on a great streak there, doing so well. Same thing with April. April had her work cut out there with Esperanza Barreras for the first time in an APP Tour, if I am not mistaken. So Espe there claiming the long distance, and April coming in second, and then vice versa in the sprint race. So that was cool to see. So great racing there. And then another great racing to see was, of course, the 11 City Tour. And I mean, that thing has been going on for 14 years, you guys, 14 years of racing there. And then first I have to shout out to all the non-stop racers. I mean, come on, straight 24 hours for Leonard Nika there, doing his big dream of a non-stop race. I mean, that is just huge, you know. Like, and then there's teams and girls are paddling, so you can watch and see all the results on my website. And of course, I can always only grab as much content out of situations like this as I'm getting. Often I have to go grab it on social media, or I find it on a newsletter or somewhere, but it's not coming to me unsolicited. But looking through the results today, it was really interesting to see how Petronella van Malsen and Tonio Ecker seemed to be neck on neck for the first 4 stages. And then something happened, and I don't know what it was, but then in the 5th stage, actually Tonio there won by quite a margin, and then actually made up for all the minutes that she was behind Petronella in the first 4 stages, ending up winning that race. So congratulations to her there. I'm sure that was a very exciting finish there. And of course, with the man, Bruno Hosuyo was dominating that race stage by stage. And we saw how he was so super stoked on his dream, fulfilling his dream there, putting his posts out on social media. So that was really cool. I mean, what a great race. Look, like, such a great community. They had so many paddlers there. They paddled along. They participated in some stages and not. So it was really cool to see how they did that. And then the 3rd race, Euro Tour down in Croatia, smaller this time. I'm sure it was probably a little bit of the turnout there was not all that much, probably a little bit of a scheduling conflict there because of the APP moving their dates. I don't know, but we had powerhouse Tito Pujo winning down there in Croatia. So he evidently chose to go to Croatia rather than to the APP Tour. Probably a good choice there, because you can, you know, like, see where you can make some prize money and where not. So, but overall, again, I'm only getting in what I get in from the organizers. And the Euro Tour, I had some pictures there and that everybody saw, and we got the newsletter and the Facebook posts, and then that was pretty much it. And then the last race, not to forget, there's lots of great pictures came out of that one. It's the SUP Alps Trophy with the Bavarian SUP Championships, and it's such a great local tour that is hitting different alpine lakes throughout the SUP season, Austria, Switzerland, Germany. So they have a really good turnout there, and you guys can see it in the pictures. Winter is coming, fall is upon us. So, and again, another great SUP community there surrounding the Alpine region, with Austrians participating, Swiss and Germans participating. Some people sometimes come over from the Czech Republic, and really great racing there. And of course, one big shout out there to the German powerhouse Norman Weber, who is dominating the German SUP scene. He participates in a race, he wins, and he's got that title pretty much booked. Nobody can catch him. And that caps it off. 4 races, guys, over this weekend. Thank you guys so much for partaking and giving me your time. And hopefully we'll see you next week with some more SUP racing.